So, I became a mom since my last video. I had plans, and I decided to do a video on my birth story instead of what I was going to do, which was about marriage. Without any further ado. Welcome back to my channel. So I was going to do a video on marriage, and then I ended up going into labor the night before I was going to film my next video. I decided that I was going to do a video about my birth story instead. So the night before I was going to film the video, I actually went into labor, and that was at 11:30 o'clock at night. So I did not end up filming the next video, which I'm really thankful for, because after I had her, I kind of had like a realization, like I was deeply convicted and realized how I really wanted to do a video of my birth story. Mostly because I'm a first-time mom, and I'm a young mom because I'm 19, and I feel like there's a lot of people, including myself, when having their first child, they have like a huge labor plan, and then things go extremely wrong, and what you want to happen doesn't actually happen. And that's what happened with me. My dream labor didn't work out, but it was supremely better, and I want to talk about why. It's because it was God's plan and not mine. You should not expect things to go right with your first child or any child at all, because honestly, it's always going to be in God's plan, not yours. And most of the time, like all the time, it's going to be better even if you don't see it as being better quite yet. So my plan with having the baby was it's pretty much what everybody's plan is. I wanted to go 100% natural. I did not want to have to get induced. I certainly did not want Pitocin, and I didn't want an epidural. I wanted everything to be 100% and totally natural. Pitocin like hones in your contractions. It makes them a lot more consistent and harder, and speeds up the process, so it's a lot more aggressive and painful than a natural labor. And I was afraid that if I got Pitocin, that I would not be able to go without an epidural, which is the main thing that I wanted, was to go 100% natural. So everything started out working out the way that I wanted it to. I was working up until Saturday, so the 11th was going to be my last day at work, but I had to work Thursday first, obviously, and Thursday at 12:30 p.m. I ended up losing my mucus plug. So I ended up going to work anyways. I was having off and on again contractions for the whole day, including while I was at work. So I had a feeling that it was pretty much going to happen, like if not that day, then in the following days. I was really hoping to make it till Saturday because that was my last shift, but the Lord blessed my Thursday to be a good day anyways, and I ended up making a good enough amount of money to do for us. So it didn't really go with my plan, but it still worked out. 11:30 p.m. that my water broke while I was in the bathtub. I felt the pop and I heard the pop. So at first I thought like an appendix exploded and I thought I was gonna die, and then like I was like, Becca, get yourself together. So I actually got up and used the bathroom, and I stood up and I was still leaking. So I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure my water broke. So I woke Ruben up, and then I drank some water and I laid down for a little bit, stood up, still gushing. So I called the hospital and they told me to come in. By the time we got there, it was 1 o'clock in the a.m. and they confirmed that I did break my water and my contractions had already started. We were at the hospital from 1 until 6 a.m. and during that time my contractions were consistent and getting a little stronger. So I thought everything was going 100% totally smoothly, and that's exactly what I wanted, and I was thrilled. Everything was going exactly to plan. Until 6 o'clock rolled around, and then they checked my cervix. When I got to the hospital, I was dilated at a 2. From 1 till 6, that's 5 hours of contractions, I only progressed to a 3. That's when they told me that when your water breaks first, you have an 18-hour window to have the baby before there's a risk of infection for the baby. I was upset. I did not want Pitocin, and they were telling me I was moving too slow, and I was denial, straight up denial. They left, and I told my husband, I was like, they got to give it a chance. My contractions are going to get harder. They're going to go faster. It's just taking some time. That's what I told myself. I thought if I got up and took a shower and like moved around a little bit, that it would move faster on its own. And that was kind of like the whole plan. I was like, I'm going to do this, and I don't need Pitocin. I don't need them to do anything. It's going to do it on its own. About an hour later, nurse came in and told me, you're not progressing. You need to have Pitocin to move it along. Otherwise, there's a risk of infection. And I basically told her what I wanted. So she left and went and got the doctor. So then the doctor came back and was basically reiterating what she said, and basically was like, I understand you don't want Pitocin. I understand why. But you need to understand that if your progress continues to be this slow, it's going to get to a point where there is a risk of infection for the baby. And I got really emotional. And I remember I turned to Ruben and I was like, crying, and because my plan was being taken from me. That's what I felt like. I felt like everything that I had planned was just slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. Like, I was just not having it. I didn't want to deal with it. So my husband actually calmed me down, and he just basically said, Becca, this delivery was never your plan. It was always God's plan. You need to just let it go and give it to him. And I was like, but Ruben, I don't want to get an epidural. And he's like, Becca, no one is going to judge you. No one's going to care if you get an epidural. It's fine. No one knows the pain you're going through. And if it's really hard on you and you need to get one, then get it. And no one's going to say anything. It's no one's business anyways. So, with that being said, I decided to get the Pitocin. We started the process at 9 o'clock in the a.m. They started me off at a 1. When they started it, I had only dilated to a 4. So that's where I started at, was a 4. I was in not hard labor. It was like, it felt hard to me from 9 until noon. It was very difficult. It was getting worse. And I felt like pretty confident. Like, I thought I was doing really good, to be fair. Like, I thought I was like, yeah, they're going to check me and I'm going to be at like a 7 or an 8 because, like, man, I'm rocking this. 3 hours later, I was like, I'm on Pitocin. There's no way I'm not at least at a 7. Like, that's genuinely what I thought. So she checked me, and it was the biggest letdown because in 3 hours on Pitocin, I had only dilated to a 5. So I was like, Ruben, I can't do this. Like, I have been sitting here in labor on Pitocin. It's been getting worse. It's not getting better. And they just came in and told me that I'm only dilated at a 5 after 3 hours. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Ruben was very just blunt. He's like, if you can't do it anymore, you better just ask for your epidural now and get it over with. And I was like, well, I still got some fight in me, so I'm just going to hold out and see what happens. From noon until 1:30, my contractions had rapidly sped up. They had upped me to, I think I was at a 5 with the Pitocin. My contractions were harder, they were stronger, and it was getting to a point where I was having like a really hard time handling it. Like, I was getting to a point where it was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And it was only an hour and a half later, and I was like, they're gonna check me and tell me I'm at like a 6 or something, and if they tell me that, I'm not gonna be able to do it. Like, they're gonna have to give me an epidural because it was so painful. They were consistent. They were like every 2 and 3 minutes, and I was standing a lot trying to let gravity do its thing. I highly recommend walking around, standing, and sitting on the bounce ball. All of those things were extremely helpful. They really moved the process along, and even though every contraction hurt a lot worse standing up rather than laying down, it actually, I think, was working better. Gravity was doing its job. It was getting to a point, like, I was so exhausted. I hadn't slept. I worked the whole day before. Like, I had been running around all day. So I had no sleep. I was exhausted. I passed out twice on the bounce ball. My husband had to catch me because in between contractions, like, I had no control. Like, my body just shut down for like a second, and he had to catch me twice. And after the second time of him catching me, I suddenly had the worst contraction that I'd had so far, and the very sudden urge to push. And that freaked me out. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I needed to push. And my husband was like, what? And I was like, I'm pretty sure that I was ready to push right there. And he was like, okay, we'll tell the nurse when she comes in next. And it was perfect timing because she came in right after that. I told her what happened. I told her that I felt like I needed to push. And she did not check me like I wanted her to. It was 1:30. It was only an hour and a half after the last time they checked me. The last time they checked me, I was only at a 5. So she was pretty much like, the pressure you were feeling was probably because the baby's head is so low. It's true. Colleena's head was abnormally low for all of the 3rd trimester, and for every contraction her head was like really down there, like she was ready to come out. So I understand like that point of view, but I was like, no, this is not the same thing. Like I really felt like I needed a push. But she didn't believe me. So the next half hour, she had me laying on the bed doing exercises to help with the contractions. And these exercises were horribly painful. They had this peanut ball that they put in between my legs, and every time I had a contraction, like, it was basically like I had to clamp down on it, and it was so painful. And she had me do it on both sides, and I was like almost in tears, like it hurt so bad. And I just kept repeating, I need to push, like I'm ready to go. She finally decided to check me, and as if this is not an indicator, she checked me and she goes, I think you're dilated at an 8, only it's really hard for me to tell because your baby's head is in the way. So she went to get a second opinion. She brought in a second nurse who pushed the baby's head out of the way to check, and she was like, yeah, she's ready to go. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like I was really ready to wimp out and like be like, I'm done, I don't want to have this baby anymore. And all of a sudden I was ready to go. I was ready to have a baby. So they brought in the doctor, and it was at 2:03 when the doctor got in there and finally gave me permission to start pushing. First push, Ruben saw little baby's head, and he started bawling. Becca, don't stop pushing. Like, he was like, get that baby out, you're doing great. And I was like screaming, not like in pain, but like it was like a really intense warrior cry. I felt like a Dragon Ball Z character, not gonna lie. I was just like really intense. I made my throat sore for 2 days because of how powerful my warrior cry was. So that was pretty fly, not gonna lie. The doctor finally told me to stop pushing because I was literally running out of breath trying to push the baby out before it was time. And she kept saying, Becca, take breaths, breathe, breathe. And I'm just like trying to get like, no, I need to get this baby out of here. She asked me if I wanted to touch the baby's head, and I was like, are you crazy? Like, I just want this baby out of me. So I said no. I screamed no, like hardcore. And then finally I pushed the baby out, and I laid eyes on the most beautiful, beautiful baby I have ever seen in my life. Like, I instantly just, it was like a love that I cannot even begin to describe, and nothing else mattered. And I held her in my arms, and she didn't even cry. She was just whimpering, the cutest little whimper, sucking on her thumb. Newborn sucking on her thumb. And my husband and I were just like in tears, and he was like, he started praying over us. Like, the whole thing was so surreal, and like all the energy that I didn't have just suddenly like overwhelmed me, and like I was like wide awake. So the doctor came in at 2:04, and I had actually pushed her out. Like, the recorded time was 2:07. So I actually pushed her out in 3 minutes, which is like, pat myself on the back for that one. Like, dang. It really taught me a lot about how naive you can be, especially when planning your first delivery, because nothing happened the way that I wanted it to, but it was so much better. Don't make any plans. Really don't, because you're going to make false expectations that are just, it's not going to help the delivery. It's not going to ease your mind. It's going to make you really stressed out, because if things don't go the way you want it to, it's going to just really mess with your psyche, and you don't want to go through that. I definitely would recommend that when you go into labor, just really give it to the Lord, because like I said, it worked out. It was so much better than what I was planning, because what I was planning was unrealistic. I got through it by breathing. My focal point was whatever I had to grab onto. If it was a bar, that's what I focused on, squeezing that sucker. Just know you can do it. It is bearable. The pain is bearable, and once you push that baby out and lay eyes on that baby, you're going to fall in love, and it's going to be a more powerful love than you could have for anything else. Thank you so much for watching my birth story video. I will be dropping another one very shortly, and it'll be the second episode of my ministry series. If you guys have any stories, birth stories that you want to share down in the comments, I'd love to read them. If you really like this video and want to see more content, please subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you.